The request that broke the silence was a quiet afternoon in Los Angeles, when Sandra Bullock arrived at a small art studio tucked behind a row of blooming jacaranda trees. The air smelled faintly of paint and turpentine, the kind of scent that felt like memory and time mixed together. Inside, Alexandra Grant stood by the window, her hands stained with blue paint, her eyes soft but distant. The two women had known each other for years, not just as public figures, but as quiet souls who both loved Keanu Reeves in different ways. Sandra's love had always been one of friendship, unspoken and pure. Alexandra's love was romantic, real, and now complicated. Sandra hesitated before speaking. Her voice trembled slightly. Alexandra, I didn't come here to hurt you. I came because I care about both of you. Alexandra looked up slowly. This sounds serious. Sandra took a deep breath. Keanu's not okay. The words hung in the air like glass about to shatter. What do you mean? Alexandra asked, her brow furrowing. He's changed, Sandra said softly. Since the accident, since everything that's happened. He's not the same. He smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes anymore. He blames himself for things that aren't his fault. And you've been patient, but maybe too patient. Alexandra set down her brush, wiping her hands with a rag. So what are you saying? Sandra's eyes filled with quiet pain. I think you need to step away. Maybe even end it. Give him space to heal without feeling like he's breaking someone else's heart too. The silence that followed was unbearable. Alexandra's lips parted, but no words came out. She stared at Sandra, shocked, hurt, and confused all at once. You're asking me to break up with the man I love, to help him heal? Sandra nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Yes, because sometimes love isn't about holding on. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go. Alexandra turned away, her hands trembling. You think I'm the reason he's hurting? No, Sandra said quickly. But maybe he can't move forward while he's trying to protect everyone else's feelings. Maybe he needs to fall apart before he can truly come back together. The room felt smaller suddenly, heavy with emotion. Alexandra walked to the window, watching the leaves sway in the sunlight. You know, Sandra, she whispered, when I met him, he told me he'd stopped believing in happy endings. I promised him I'd change that. I can't just walk away now. Sandra stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. Then don't walk away forever. Just step back, long enough for him to find himself again. Sometimes distance is the kindest form of love. Alexandra turned around, her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You really believe this is what's best for him? Sandra nodded slowly. I do. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Only the sound of the wind through the open window filled the silence. Two women, both loving the same man in different ways, now caught in a choice that would change all three of their lives forever. The breakup no one saw coming for days. Alexandra couldn't sleep. Sandra's words echoed in her mind like a song that wouldn't stop playing. Maybe he needs to fall apart before he can come back together. She tried to shake the thought away, but every time she looked at Keanu, she saw it, the quiet sadness in his eyes, the heavy weight behind every smile. Keanu was gentle as always, kind and attentive, but there was a distance that had slowly grown between them. He had stopped painting with her, stopped playing guitar, and some days, he barely spoke. When she asked what was wrong, he would say, nothing, I'm just tired. But Alexandra could feel it. His soul was somewhere else. One evening, she invited him to her studio. The sun was setting through the large glass window, painting the room in shades of gold and blue. Keanu arrived in his usual calm way, wearing his old leather jacket and that soft half-smile that always made her heart ache. You wanted to talk? He asked quietly. She nodded, her throat dry. Yeah. Sit down, Keanu. Please. He looked at her carefully, sensing something was off. You're scaring me, he said softly, trying to smile. She took a deep breath. You know I love you, right? His smile faded. Why does that sound like a goodbye? Tears welled up in her eyes before she could stop them. Because maybe it is. He froze. Alex, what are you saying? She stood up, pacing the floor. I've been watching you, Keanu. You're not happy. You're carrying pain that has nothing to do with me, but I can feel it in every silence. Every moment you drift away. And I can't keep pretending that love alone can fix that. He looked down, his voice breaking. So you're leaving me? Just like that? Not because I stopped loving you, she whispered. Because I love you enough to let you breathe again. He stood, his hands trembling slightly. Did someone put this idea in your head? She hesitated. Sandra came to see me. His expression changed instantly, confusion mixed with hurt. Sandra, why would she? She's worried about you, Alexandra said softly. And so am I, for a long time. Keanu said nothing. His jaw tightened as he tried to keep his emotions from showing. You both think I'm broken, he finally said. Maybe you're right. Alexandra stepped closer, tears streaming freely now. You're not broken, Keanu. You're just lost. And I can't lead you back this time. You have to find your own way. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. And what if I can't? Then I'll still be here, she said quietly. Just not beside you. When she reached out to touch his arm, he didn't move. He just stood there, silent, his shoulders trembling. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of traffic outside and the quiet breaking of two hearts. Trying to do the right thing. As Keanu walked out of her studio that night, Alexandra whispered into the fading light, please find peace, even if it's without me. The day Keanu disappeared the next morning, the world went on as usual, but for Keanu, everything felt wrong. He woke up in his empty apartment, surrounded by silence that felt too heavy to bear. Alexandra's words echoed in his mind. You have to find your own way. He tried to distract himself. He went for a walk, made coffee, even sat at his piano. But nothing filled the space she had left behind. Everywhere he looked, he saw pieces of her, a photo on the table, her favorite mug, a book she had once read to him aloud. By evening, he couldn't stand it anymore. He grabbed his jacket, took his motorcycle keys, and left the city without telling anyone where he was going. When Alexandra called that night, there was no answer. She tried again and again until the calls went straight to voicemail. She texted him, please tell me you're okay, but the message stayed unread. Panic slowly began to grow in her chest. By the next morning, Sandra showed up at Alexandra's studio. She could tell something was wrong the moment she saw Alexandra's pale face. He's gone, Alexandra said quietly. I think he left the city. Sandra froze. What do you mean gone? Did he say anything? Alexandra shook her head, tears in her eyes. Nothing. I just know it's my fault. I shouldn't have listened to you. Sandra's heart dropped. Alexandra, I didn't mean for it to end like this. I thought maybe giving him space would help him heal, not disappear. For 2 days, no one heard from Keanu. His phone was off. The press started speculating, Keanu Reeves missing? But Sandra and Alexandra stayed silent. They didn't care about rumors. They just wanted him safe. Then, on the 3rd day, Sandra received a call from an unknown number. When she answered, a calm voice on the other end said, Ma'am, we found Mr. Reeves. He's at a small clinic outside Santa Barbara. He's safe, but exhausted. Without wasting a second, Sandra and Alexandra got into the car and drove straight there. The road was long and quiet, the air thick with guilt and fear. When they arrived, they saw Keanu sitting under a tree behind the small clinic, his arm in a sling, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He looked up when he heard their footsteps. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just said softly, you both came. Alexandra rushed to him first. Where were you? We were so scared. He took a deep breath, his voice low. I just needed to disappear. I went for a long ride. I wanted to think, but I slipped on the road near the cliffs. Nothing serious, just a small crash. The doctor here took care of me. Sandra's eyes filled with tears. Keanu, you can't do that. You scared everyone. He looked at both of them, one who had tried to save him, and one who had tried to set him free. Maybe that's the problem, he said quietly. Everyone's trying to save me. Maybe I need to learn how to save myself. Alexandra's voice broke. Then teach us how to stay without breaking you. Keanu looked away, pain and longing mixing in his expression. I don't know how yet, he whispered. And for the first time, all three of them realized love, no matter how deep, wasn't always enough to keep people whole. The truth he couldn't hide anymore after the small crash near Santa Barbara. Keanu stayed at the clinic for a few more days. It was a quiet place, surrounded by trees, and the sound of the ocean in the distance. Doctors said he only needed rest, but everyone could see it wasn't his body that was tired. It was his spirit. Sandra and Alexandra rented a small cabin nearby so they could visit him every day. At first, he didn't want company, but they refused to leave. Even when he barely spoke, they sat with him, bringing him tea, reading to him, or just sharing silence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Sandra sat beside him on the porch while Alexandra was inside preparing dinner. For a long time, neither spoke. The air was filled with the soft sound of waves and the smell of pine. Finally, Sandra broke the silence. "You know, we didn't mean to make things worse." Keanu looked at her with tired eyes. "I know, you were both trying to help, but maybe I wasn't ready to be helped." She nodded slowly. "You've been carrying pain for too long. It's okay to fall apart sometimes." He looked down at his hands. "I think that's the problem, Sandra. I never really stopped falling apart. I just learned to hide it better." Her heart tightened. "You don't have to hide anymore." He smiled faintly. "The world doesn't want to see broken heroes. They just want stories that make them feel better. And I became that story, the kind man, the strong man. But inside, I'm just tired of pretending." Sandra reached out and took his hand gently. "Then stop pretending. Be real, even if it hurts." He looked into her eyes for a moment, eyes that had seen him at his worst and still stayed. "And what about Alexandra? She deserves someone who isn't haunted." Before Sandra could answer, Alexandra stepped out quietly. Having heard everything, her voice trembled as she said, "I don't want someone perfect, Keanu. I just want someone honest." He turned, startled to see her standing there. "Alex," she walked closer, her eyes glistening. "I thought giving you space would fix things, but I was wrong. You don't need space, you need truth, even if it's painful." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "The truth is, I don't know how to love without losing. Every time I care for someone, I start counting the days until they're gone. It's like my heart's been trained to expect goodbye." Alexandra reached out, gently touching his face. "Then let this be the moment you stop expecting goodbye." Tears filled his eyes, and for the first time in years, he didn't fight them. He let them fall, silent, real, human. Sandra stood quietly, watching them, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. She had come there to push them apart, but now she realized something deeper. Maybe love wasn't about protecting people from pain. Maybe it was about standing beside them while they face it. As the night grew darker, the three of them sat together under the stars. No more pretending, no more walls. Just truth, forgiveness, and the beginning of something new. When the letter arrived. A few weeks passed since the night Keanu broke down under the stars. The three of them tried to move forward, gently, carefully, as if one wrong word could reopen the wounds they had only just begun to heal. Alexandra went back to painting. Sandra started filming again, and Keanu stayed at the cabin by the ocean, walking each morning along the shore in silence. But the peace didn't last long. One morning, a small envelope arrived at the cabin. It had no return address, only his name written in soft handwriting he immediately recognized, Alexandra's. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside was a short letter, written with honesty and pain. "Dear Keanu, I know you said you need time to find yourself, and I respect that. But I can't keep waiting, not because I stopped loving you, but because love shouldn't be waiting for someone to come back from their own heart. I want you to heal, truly. Maybe when you do, we'll find our way again. Always, Alexandra." He read it over and over, the words sinking deep into him. It wasn't anger he felt, it was emptiness. A kind of quiet acceptance that maybe this was what love sometimes became. To people walking in different directions, carrying pieces of each other wherever they went. That evening, Sandra found him sitting outside, staring at the sea with the letter still in his hand. She sat beside him without saying anything. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "She's gone," he said softly. Sandra nodded. "I know, it hurts," he whispered. "But at the same time, I understand. She deserves light, not the shadows I keep bringing." "You're not a shadow, Keanu," Sandra said gently. "You just forgot how much light you already carry." He turned to her, a faint smile touching his lips. "And you never gave up reminding me of it." They sat together until the sky turned orange and purple. Keanu looked peaceful for the first time in months. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his own notebook, the one filled with gratitude letters. He flipped to a blank page and began to write. "Dear Alexandra, you were right. Love shouldn't wait, it should live. Thank you for loving me when I couldn't love myself. I'll spend the rest of my days trying to be the man you believed I could be." When he finished, he closed the notebook and looked at Sandra. Maybe this is what healing really means, not fixing what broke, but learning to walk forward with it. Sandra smiled softly. And maybe that's what love really is, not holding on, but wishing someone peace, even when it hurts. As the wind brushed against them, carrying away the sound of the waves, Keanu whispered, for the first time, "I don't feel lost anymore." When the world finally understood. Months passed quietly after Alexandra's letter. Keanu spent his days far from the noise of the world, living simply by the ocean. He had learned to cook small meals, fix his bike, and sit in silence without feeling empty. Every evening, he watched the sunset like a ritual, not as a man waiting for something, but as someone finally learning to be present. Sandra still visited often. Sometimes she brought groceries, sometimes old movie scripts, but mostly, she just brought herself. Their friendship had deepened into something sacred, not romance, not obligation, but a quiet bond built through everything they had survived together. One afternoon, Sandra found Keanu sitting on the porch, holding a small box in his hands. She noticed the gentle smile on his face. "What's that?" she asked. "Letters," he said softly. "One for Alexandra, one for you, and one for myself." "For yourself?" she asked, surprised. He nodded. "The hardest person to forgive was me, so I wrote to remind myself that I'm allowed to move on." He handed her the second letter. Her fingers brushed against his as she took it. She unfolded the paper slowly, her eyes filling as she read. "Dear Sandra, you were the voice that never gave up on me, the calm in the storm. When I wanted to disappear, you reminded me that people still care. I don't think I could ever repay that kind of love, but I'll carry it with me always. Thank you for saving me, not with words, but with presence." She looked up at him, tears glistening. "You don't owe me anything, Keanu. We saved each other." He smiled. "Then I guess we're even." That evening, as the two of them watched the sunset, Sandra received a call. It was Alexandra. Her voice was calm, steady, almost peaceful. "I heard he's doing better," she said quietly. "He is," Sandra replied. "He's healing. Not fast, but real." Alexandra hesitated, then said softly, "Tell him I'm proud." "Tell him." He kept his promise. When Sandra hung up, she turned to Keanu. "She's proud of you," she said gently. He smiled faintly, looking out toward the horizon. "Tell her I'm grateful. And tell her, I finally understand what she meant." A soft wind blew through the porch, carrying the faint sound of ocean waves. Keanu stood, stretching his arms as if shaking off the last of his old pain. "What now?" Sandra asked. He took a deep breath. "Now, I live. Really live. Maybe I'll travel again, make a movie, or just keep writing. But whatever it is, I'll do it with peace this time." She nodded, smiling. That's the man the world fell in love with, not because he was famous, but because he was real. He chuckled softly. Maybe the world just needed to see that being real means being broken sometimes. As the sun dipped below the sea, Keanu closed his eyes, feeling warmth on his face. No more guilt, no more running, just gratitude. The story didn't end with a reunion or a grand gesture. It ended quietly, like all real healing does, with forgiveness, peace, and the courage to move forward.